Hi, my name is Kelly Oleksick, and I'm here with Linda Wohar of Wohar Wellness Systems, and we're here today to talk to you about sugar alternatives.
This is the second class in our series that we're doing. It came out of our SBN, our Science-Based Nutrition Program, where we're trying to do what we can do to give you some more information of how to change your life if you want to.
So today our talk is mainly going to be on sugar alternatives, and we're going to give you a lot of options, a lot of ideas, and a lot of hope if you are or think you're addicted to sugar and how you can go ahead and change that mindset.
I always said, I don't want to live in a world without chocolate chip cookies.
Thankfully, we don't
That's
have
right.
to.
And thankfully, we don't have to. Let's change our slide. There we go. Choosing a better alternative, where do you fall, or what should our choices be? First off, we should make the choice to just make the decision, because it always starts with a decision, that I am not going to use any refined sugar in cooking or eating. Refined sugar is white sugar. This product right here, white sugar. We can make the choice to not use any refined sugar in our cooking or eating. And then I am trying to not buy any products that contain white sugar as an ingredient. And we also need to say that I use a limited amount of less refined sugars, and we're going to talk about a lot of the less refined sugars. And I am using a healthier sugar alternative.
So you have to ask yourself, where do you fall on that kind of
Spectrum.
line there? Are you someone that only eats refined sugars? Are you somebody that never eats refined sugars? Do you struggle with it? I think at one point in time we probably all have struggled with eating refined sugars. And but we need to be healthier. And as Linda said, you do sometimes have to just put your big girl pants on and just make that decision that you're not going to eat it anymore. But luckily, over time, there have been so many sugar alternatives that are not only healthy, but taste just as good as the refined ones. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
My children will tell you that I've always said to them that if it wasn't for nutrition, I would live on M&Ms and coffee. But since sugar, the treats were always my area of importance, I made it my goal in life to find alternative sugars that we can make all of our favorite treats and basically have our cake and eat it too.
That's good. I like cake.
So do you have a sugar problem? That's what you need to think about first. And I think anyone watching this, and almost every one of us would have to say, most of us would have to know. And actually, you might have a sugar problem without even realizing you have a sugar problem, and not even have any idea of the amount of sugar that you are getting.
Yeah, so if you hold tight to the sugar like this little girl is, it's a good indicator that you probably do have a sugar problem. Okay, some sugar statistics we're going to talk about. So how much is too much? We have some visuals we want to show you too, because sometimes people learn better with visuals. But the average American can eat 152 pounds of sugar a year, which is equivalent to 6 cups of sugar a week. So once you think about it, or if you watch this on replay, go get a cup and even just fill it with water and put it out there, and how much a cup is. And that's how much we're eating, not in a month, not in a year, but an average per week. That's a lot of sugar.
Yes, it is.
That's a lot of sugar. The current average sugar consumption per day is 25, almost 26 teaspoons. That's 11.98 teaspoons more than what the government recommends. So
Just to give you an
think about
idea,
that.
this is about 26 teaspoons. This is about 26 teaspoons right here.
So just
for
think
a
that that's probably what the average American is eating on a regular basis, and not just eating in the white sugar form in something like that, but in drinks. Sugar is hidden everywhere. Everywhere that you can imagine, sugar's hidden. So that's what we're talking about.
Okay, before she moves on to the next point, I told you this was 26 teaspoons per day. This is for a Gatorade and a Powerade. The Gatorade is 12 teaspoons, and the Powerade is 14.
Wow.
So this is 26 teaspoons right here. If you have, so it's telling you how much pop, like if you drank a Gatorade and a Powerade, you have a tough day out on the soccer field or whatever, and if you drank one of either of these, two of these, that's your consumption for the day
Wow.
instead of for the hour.
Yeah, and that's and that 26 is actually more than half of what the U.S. government is recommending. So actually, half of a bag of that is what technically we should be limiting ourselves to. So that's a lot when you look at a visual like that. And the top 10 percentile of sugar consumers take an average of 40% of their daily calories from sugar. So just think of what you eat on a regular basis. But just also think of if you start your day off driving through Starbucks for, a pumpkin latte or something, you've probably already hit well over 3 days worth of your average sugar. But if you do that, and then for lunch you're grabbing something that even has natural sugars in it, that's still a sugar. So just think about what you eat in a day, and just think about where that sugar is coming from. It's not too hard to understand how we can get 40% of our calories a day just from sugar. And in 2008, 91% of American children from ages 6 to 11 were consuming as much as 60% of their daily intake in sugar-sweetened beverages. So that is your Gatorade, like Linda was talking about, your Powerade, your sodas, also even your juices or your juicy juice, your Kool-Aids, things like that. So that's a
I'm
lot
glad
of
you
sugar.
mentioned that one because Sunkissed Orange is one of the highest sugar drinks you can drink. Sunkissed Orange Pop. It is 19 teaspoons of added
Wow.
sugar. 19 teaspoons or 325 calories. But
Wow.
19 teaspoons of added sugar just for a Sunkissed Orange.
And I know it's hard sometimes if you have littles at home, you just kind of want to give them things and give them treats. But we really need to start being mindful of the treats that we're actually giving them. It's more hurtful than helpful. So we need to be more mindful of that.
How much is too much? One 12-ounce can of regular soda has 10 teaspoons, which we were already talking about. And of course, no nutritional value. If you drink a can of soda every day and then you don't trim calories some other way or elsewhere, in 3 years you're going to gain 15 pounds just from the extra can of soda. I had a friend one time who gave up soda for Lent and lost 35 pounds.
And not did anything else.
Nothing else. She just gave up soda for Lent. So
there you have
what
it.
a wonderful concept, huh? Sugar suppresses the immune system. It is the number one cause of inflammation is sugar consumption, which is a phenomenally frightening thing when you think about it. It's the number one cause of inflammation, which is the core problem in almost every single other illness and disease. And it suppresses the immune system. 100 grams of sugar, the amount found in a medium soft drink, can suppress your blood cell functioning by 40% for 5 hours.
Wow.
Which is a scary thought. Sugar accelerates aging process. None of us want to hear that. None of us want to hear that. Science research studies have found that sugar speeds up the cell aging process. And sugar can increase the risk of cavities. Of course, everyone by now knows the problems with dental and anything with regard to your teeth. Of course, sugar is a main culprit of that.
And I'm just thinking now in what's going on today with the COVID-19, when you talked about it suppressing the immune system,
Right.
That's one thing right now that we need to preserve and increase that more than anything is our immune system and keep it healthy, especially during this time.
And
So if any other reason to quit sugar right there, that would be it.
for what's happening right
Yes.
now, exactly. One of our patients very nicely, after Dr. John did his great talk on suppressing the immune system in COVID-19 a couple weeks ago, she said she went home and took all the ice cream out of her freezer and threw it away, which is very nice. It was a wonderful thing to do, really, when you think about it.
Very brave.
Because, like
but-
most of us, if it's there, we will eat it. If it's
Yes.
there, we will eat it.
Yes.
Obviously, sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine.
Yeah, we don't like to think about that, but it's probably true. If you are addicted to sugar, you know you're addicted. If you think about it, if you can't have any part of your meals without adding sugar, it's a problem. And so hopefully with our help, we can go ahead and help get you back on your way to better living and dealing more with good sugar alternatives. And I just like this slide. It says talk is sheep. And it says never let anyone pull the wool over your eyes, my friend. And I think as we go through more of these, that's what happens. Us as consumers, we tend to want to believe so much. And you can't. You really have to be your own health advocate in every sense of the word. And it's the same thing in what you eat. It may take longer at the grocery store, but it's for your own health. So you have to be diligent in what they're putting in our foods and where they're hiding these sneaky sugars.
We are being fooled. I know that many countries in the world use the metric system, but in this country, we do not use the metric system. So when you say to somebody, or when you look on the back of a package of something and it says, oh, wait, it's only 26 grams of sugar. That's not a lot, right? A gram is like a feather, isn't it? So that's, I mean, really, when you think about it, I mean, in our high school classes, so many grams of this didn't seem like very much. So we are being fooled. We don't understand it when we look at it. So basically, the metric system, number one, was the biggest thing that fooled many Americans. That's why we used our little sugar cubes, because I translated these from metric to what we can understand as Americans. But 1 teaspoon of sugar is about 4 or 5 grams. So 25 grams is going to be, 5 teaspoons. And we all know that 5 teaspoons is almost 2 tablespoons. Mm-hmm. Now, when you think about that, that sounds like a lot more. The second way they fooled us was these phenomenally unrealistic serving sizes. A can of pop. If you look at the serving size on a can of pop, that is supposed to be 2 servings. The Gatorades and the Powerades that we showed you before. This Gatorade or Powerade, this one was the Powerade, is supposed to be 2.5 servings.
Oh, wow.
So when you looked at the serving size and it said only so many grams of sugar, that it was for 2.5 servings. And I have seen all my years of soccer mom, being on the soccer field, seeing these 6-year-olds and 8-year-olds holding a Gatorade, and their moms and everybody that loves them giving them Gatorades and Powerades, thinking they needed that. Mm-hmm. And that's for 1 child. It was not 2.5 children. It was 1 child drinking that whole thing, which was this much sugar.
And those are 32 ounces a lot of times.
A lot of them are, or at least 24 ounces,
yeah.
at least 24 ounces. And so they have this much sugar in it. So it was unrealistic serving size. If you ever looked at cold cereal had, it was like a half of a cup or 2/3 of a cup was a serving. Who eats that much cereal? And if you actually measure it, we are eating usually about 2 cups,
yes,
which is potentially 4 servings of cereal. So you need to think about that. Again, like the soda's only 2.5 servings. Most healthy yogurts have over 15 grams per serving. So there's definitely some better yogurts on the market now today. And is there also sugar in your bread and your milk? Many of the breads on the market have, if you look at the labels, again, you got to look at the labels. They have sugar in both the bread and then there's natural sugar in milk. Not added sugar, but there's natural sugar in it. So that's what we mean about a lot of hidden sugars and things.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And yogurt, everybody thinks, oh, yogurt is so healthy. And there are many healthy alternatives out there of yogurt. But what you have to realize is those ones that you're getting, that's the chocolate peanut butter yogurt and the stuff. Yeah, just because it says yogurt doesn't mean it's always so healthy. So you need to make better choices when it comes to choosing things. I eat yogurt every day. But there are ways that you can eat healthy alternatives of yogurt, even making your own,
right.
Or just choosing ones that have less sugar. And definitely watch the added sugar. When you see labels of sugar, it'll say also added. And that's where you really want to look at and focus on is the added sugar that they're putting in things. Other ways that sugar can harm the body besides the one big one, which is weight gain. And there's a lot of us that struggle with that, with the weight gain. But heart disease. And you would think, oh, well, how can sugar affect heart disease? Well, one study found that you're more than likely to die from heart disease if more than what a quarter of your food consumption is sugar. So if a quarter of your food or more is sugar, then you're more likely to die of heart disease. And if you ask yourself, I'm sure there are people in your family, you might carry a risk of heart disease. So this is an easy fix right here. If you want to protect your heart a little more, you know, there's all other things, exercise and all that, but when it comes to sugar, just cutting that out, you are going to add value to that. Diabetes, again, to me, this is a no-brainer. Now more and more young kids are developing diabetes. And if you look back at the previous slides about how much sugar we're feeding our kids, there's, you know, that again, a no-brainer. So diabetes, high blood pressure, sugar consumption can make your insulin levels spike, which can increase your blood pressure. And then also high cholesterol. So you have many parts of your cholesterol, your total cholesterol, but it raises your so-called bad, which is your LDL cholesterol, with the more sugar that you take.
Years ago, I'm old enough to remember when cholesterol became the bad product. And you saw all the charts that, you know, increased cholesterol caused increased heart disease, caused increased death, and you saw all the charts going up. Well, at some point, you know, when cholesterol became the bad guy, everybody went on these totally low cholesterol diets. That was probably back in the 80s and 90s, all these low cholesterol, no cholesterol diets, that kind of thing. So people's consumption of cholesterol went down, but their heart disease and diabetes and all the degenerative diseases continued to rise. Well, if you followed along the consumption of sugar, they followed right along with that. So it was the continued consumption of sugar that caused the increase in diabetes and heart disease. Not, you know, they saw as the cholesterol dropped, it did not drop the other things. It was the consumption of sugar that followed the same pattern.
Yeah, so just because you're watching butter, you're watching these things, to your cholesterol, it's kind of a full circle thing.
Yes.
You need to, number one, be watching your sugar.
Yes. Also, other ways sugar harms the body, you can definitely look at liver disease. If you're regularly pumping sugar into your body, tiny drops of fat build up in your liver. This is called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. We're definitely saying about different organs, but in general, because it's such an inflammatory product, it's going to affect every organ,
And
every
kids these days
system, every product in
are
the body.
showing that.
Yes, many younger people today are showing liver disease. Poor sleep, too much sugar during the day or night can mess with your blood sugar, and it can definitely affect your sleeping and your because of it affect your energy levels, affect your sleep, definitely affect how long you can stay asleep, you know, or falling asleep as well, and even cancer. Nobody wants to think about that, you know, but cancer is your body breaking down, your body degenerating, and so anything that you're doing to your body that makes your body degenerate is going to be causing cancer, increasing cancer. Even statistically, they are showing, you know, pancreatic cancer, over 53% increased risk with sugar consumption, oral cancer 10 to 15%, and prostate cancer over 33% increase when there's a lot of consumption of sugar.
And I think that this just goes along with what we were talking about with the immunity.
Yes.
Once our immunity levels are low because we're eating all this sugar, it's going to increase our, you know, our chance of getting cancer, liver disease, and everything like that when our immune system is affected. This, we're not going to go through all this, but this slide just shows sugar by any other name. So what I want you to do is when you guys are going through this, and we're going to post the actual PowerPoint, I want you to be looking in here and maybe pulling this slide out and taking a picture of it with your phone or copying it, because when you go shopping, you want to look at some of these. These are the sneaky ways that they're calling sugar something other than sugar, and you may not realize it. So definitely read through this and, you know, make sure that you know what some of these are.
Now we're going to get into
Our safe sugars, what we can use. So wipe your eyes if you've been crying. And now this is where we get to the good stuff.
years ago, any of them that have, you know, been with Wohart Chiropractic for a while, remember that, you know, 20 years ago we did a program called 10 Steps to Better Health. And when we did the sugar class, we used to show like a big chart spread across the room. And on one side was white sugar. And then you had all the varying degrees of other sugars all the way over to this far left side or whatever is and that sugar that was over on the very farthest end, the very best sugar to use, was stevia. And stevia has been around for 30. Well, I know personally, I was using it 30 years ago, but back then it was it looked like tea. It looked like loose tea. So it was hard, very difficult to use as far as in cooking. You could put it in tea. You could put it in different products like that, where you could kind of crumble together, and it was phenomenally sweet. Some of you may actually grow stevia in your garden. I've been growing it every summer now, probably about the last 5-10 years. You can grow it. It's just a shrub is all that it is. So it has been around for many years. Back then, you could buy it, and it looked like tea. It was, and then you started to be able to buy it cut and sifted. It was called cut and sifted. And then you used to be able to buy it as in a white powder. And now there are so many wonderful, phenomenal options for it. It really wasn't openly available till about 10 years ago. You could only sell it back then. You could only buy it back then. It was sold as a nutritional product because stevia is a shrub. It's actually kind of good for you to use it from a nutritional standpoint, and it was sold as a nutritional supplement. I remember buying it like that. And but now it's used in a phenomenally amount of products, and we're going to show you some of the products. It originated in South America over 200 years ago. I know they've been using it a lot of different ways. It's naturally sweet. Based upon how you get it, it is anywhere from 200 to 500 times sweeter than white sugar. No calories, no fat. Does not cause any rise. This is probably the most important thing too. It doesn't cause any rise in blood sugar. We're not really getting into that a lot, but that's what happens with white sugar, is it causes a giant increase, and then more importantly, it drops a giant drop, and that's the
sugar
high, the sugar low that you get after it. And so it doesn't cause any effect to your blood sugar. It's safe for the whole family to use. It is not artificial. It's not saccharin. It's not any of the sucralose. It's not any of those products that have all been proven to cause harm to people. And many people will tell you when they take aspartame, they have headaches. They have problems with this. Many people will tell you stevia does not have any bad side effects. People have said, I've heard that there are websites. Some places people said, oh yeah. I've seen a website where it said that it was causing this or causing that. I have never, in all the 30 years that I've been using it, I have never, ever seen any side effect from using stevia in any way, shape, or form. It's available in many forms, but the easiest is some of the powdered forms, of stevia, and of course, some of the liquid forms. These liquid forms are great.
Yep.
This is a product, I got this off of Amazon. But Young Living makes a wonderful one now that's flavored. It's just basically stevia and water, and you can just squirt it into your coffee, you don't want to squirt it in your mouth. It is so super sweet, you couldn't stand it. But like one squirt is like about 2 teaspoons of sugar. These are very nice too as well. They're flavored extracts you can buy. You can get them almost anywhere anymore. This stevia one is, commercial names. This is the Trim Healthy Mama stevia blend, and we'll talk about some of the blends that's with it. This is not just, I don't think this one is not just stevia. This one has a couple other things with it, some other sugar alcohols with it, but it's very good. It's not, in the powder forms of stevia, I think these have some of stevia in them here. This one right here has stevia in it too. In the powdered forms, it's easier to use in cookies or in a cake, because we want to know what to do for chocolate chip cookies, or we want to make a nice cake for somebody's birthday. We need to know what to be able to use. Trim Healthy Mama has a ton of recipes using just these products as the sweetener. Personally, I found that they work best when you have mixing them with pureed fruit, mixing them with applesauce, mixing them with pumpkin or zucchini. Like even years ago, if I put this in with pureed dates or pureed raisins or something, it still made a dessert where somebody wouldn't know. That's the goal. You're trying to make a dessert that when someone goes to taste it, they don't say, "What's wrong with this?" It has to be satisfying. So
Yes,
or prunes. Pureed prunes are great as brownies in a sweetener. You can add them to brownies, make it sweeter if you use like a stevia to help add it to it. But Trim Healthy Mama has a lot of recipes using only this. Personally, I've used this as up to a half of the sugar in almost any recipes, and then I'll use some other alternative sugar as well. That's what I've had the most luck with, that nobody would know that they weren't eating a normal chocolate chip cookie if they were using. But I've cut out a third to a half of the sugar using this product. Using something like this with it. And of course it's very, very easy to use in any liquid that you're making, or in jellies. Like if you're making jelly, you can use products like this to sweeten the jelly. If you're using like a Pomona's pectin, they don't work for Sure-Jell. Doesn't work for that, but if you're using like a Pomona's pectin, then you can use a product like this.
And I think too, going back to what you were saying in the plant farm, I've had people say that those that have grown the plants, they'll take the leaves and boil them, and then they'll take the boiled part, the water that's been boiled, and they'll make ice cubes.
Oh yes.
And freeze them to use in recipes and things like that. So you can boil that and then take that and use that for other things. So
like again, you're talking no calories, no fat, no blood sugar rise. It's an exceptional product to use. It just takes a little bit more planning, a little bit more thinking about it, and there's nothing wrong with it. So,
but I think the key takeaway is it's not artificial. This
Yes.
is not the same as aspartame or anything. So if people say that's artificial, stevia is not an artificial sugar at all. Other facts about that is it says that it's been found to kill up to 71% of human breast cancer cells and 96% of skin cancer in mice. Now again, what kind of product can you say that the sugar cane that you eat helps you protect you against breast cancer? While stevia is saying that it's extremely potent, natural anti-inflammatory agent. And again, in this day and age, and with everything going on, using stevia, so that you're still having your cake and eating it too. You're still getting the sweetness that you need to satisfy, plus you're protecting yourself. And again, the study that compares the sucrose and the aspartame and stevia revealed that stevia reduced both blood glucose and insulin after a meal compared to the other two. And also, stevia is one of the only sweeteners that is not only not harmful, but actually healthful. So that, again, as Linda was saying, 0 calories, zero glycemic impact, and 100% natural.
Okay, in addition to stevia, they came out with some other products a while back, xylitol and erythritol. And that's what's in this. This is a blend of xylitol, erythritol, and stevia. These two products, xylitol and erythritol, are what they call sugar alcohols, and they do have calories. They don't have fat, I don't believe, but they do have some calories. I think they're about 40% of the calories, and they are a sugar alcohol. So when they bake, it like they evaporate like an alcohol would. So it changes the structure of things, but in combination, just like all the things we're talking about here, we're allowed to reduce, in combination with other things, you can still maintain the same flavors, but just reducing the quantity of sugars that you are eating. So those have been around for a while. Most of the toothpaste products you use, mouthwash products, many of those products now have xylitol in them or erythritol. Now these two, though, xylitol and erythritol, although they are very good in baking, again, with some of the baking replacements you can see that they make now, this I think has some of that.
Yep.
I think, oh no, monk fruit's a different one. Some people do have some reactions to eating xylitol. Like some people will tell you if they eat a lot of candy is sweetened with xylitol or erythritol, and they'll say, oh, if I eat too much of that, then I get diarrhea or something like that, or I get a bellyache. So some people have had problems with that a little bit, but again, just using a little bit of it or in combination, I think that it creates the best product when you use it in combination with things. So this one, xylitol, I think, is made from birch trees, corn, or other plants to sugar alcohol. It contains 40% less calories than white sugar, but has a low glycemic index of 7. White sugar has a glycemic index of 100, and so xylitol has a glycemic index of 7. other foods will have different glycemic indexes, so you need to look at that because the glycemic index is how your body responds to a product. So that tells you what you should be using or what you don't want products. With white sugar being 100, you of course want anything that's low. So of course with a glycemic index of 7, it's not going to affect your blood sugar too much. Weight loss friendly sweetener for someone to use. Best if used but again, like I said here, this is best if used in pre-tested recipes, like the Trim Healthy Mama or some other things. Commercial name might be Trim Healthy Mama, sugar sweet blend, wholesome sweetener, zero sweetener, like I think, do I have that one? Yeah, this one right here. Zero sweetener also, which was a really good one. Most of them do have recipes on the back. Swerve is also one of them. If you don't have recipes, like that's why I say, are we a free-for-all kind of baker? You just start with a recipe. So if your recipe calls for 2 cups of sugar, then you might want to use 1 cup of, whatever sugar you're using. I don't use white sugar, but I will use an alternative sugar. And then a lot of these will say, I think this one was, this zero was half for 1. So if it called for 1.5 cups of sweetener, I might put a half a cup of this in, 1 cup of my other sugar, and see how it turns out. And then you taste the batter, see if it tastes sweet enough, and then move on from there. That way it won't affect your texture, because that's the next thing we need to talk about is how it will affect some of the textures. So.
Yeah, you definitely want to play around with it. Don't be afraid to try things, because you have to make it your own for you to be able to
sweet enough or not sweet enough or whatever. So.
Yes. One of the other ones, the next one we're going to talk about is monk fruit, and monk fruit is made from an extract derived from dry fruit. And the extract is 150 to 250 times sweeter than table sugar, and again does not raise blood sugar. It's an anti-inflammatory product. It's great for weight loss, and it's again best used with pre-tested recipes. Monk fruit again has been around for a long time. This is probably one of my favorite sugars that I like to use.
Yeah, I really like it too.
It doesn't leave any kind of aftertaste at all. Again, if you are addicted to sugar, it's going to take some time. Don't think that you're going to be able to just make one recipe and say this is gross and throw it out. It is. You're probably going to have to do what you said. Cut recipes in half. Use your regular sugar. Add these kinds of sugars in a little bit at a time until you get to a point that you can tolerate that. But the point is, don't give up, because you will find something that you like. The Trim Healthy Mama Gentle Sweet and probably the monk fruit are 2 of my favorites that my family will eat without saying without saying, "Ew, what did you put in here?"
And I don't think we need to not say we can't have anything.
Right.
I think we need to just plan better. So I'll make up something and then I'll stick it in the freezer. So I'll have some and put some in the freezer. So if I really need some cookies, I can go in the freezer and get my banana date cookies that don't have any sugar in them, or something that I made that has a lower sugar. Like right now, I made a raspberry tart yesterday. The crust is made with the stevia blends, and I put as the sweetener in the raspberries, I used some alternative sugar, and I used some of this, and it's great. It's totally satisfying. And I don't want to not be totally satisfied when I eat a treat.
Yeah.
So. Safer sugars to use. Okay, remember I told you over here we had white sugar and over here we had stevia? Okay, if you're moving away from the stevia on this side, now these are still better sugars to use, and they're definitely on the safer sugars, okay? Molasses is an excellent sugar to use, but it's very strong flavored. You can probably only use it in limited amounts, unless you're making gingerbread, of course, then you can use a lot more molasses. We started using about 20 years ago. I saw it on the back of a molasses jar. They called it Cajun coffee, and it was putting molasses in your coffee. I did it once, and I never went back. I started putting molasses as my sweetener in my coffee in the morning, and just a teaspoon to a tablespoon, a couple teaspoons maybe. It is exceptional. My kids all do that. In fact, one daughter, when she comes to the office, or when she comes to the house, she'll say, "Fix it like you do. I like it how you fix it." And it's very good flavored, fixing it like that. And, it's a treat for me to drink a cup of coffee with molasses in it. I'm very satisfied with that. Again, honey, maple syrup, agave syrup. I think we have agave nectar here. Agave has had more questionable
Mm-hmm.
reviews on it as far as that, but it is an alternative, pretty much like honey. So those, and brown rice syrup has been around for years, as you can see it. It's less sweet than white sugar. You have to be using different amounts for it. But these sugars, molasses, honey, maple syrup, agave, brown rice syrup, they all contain vitamin and minerals from an organic source. They still have a lot of vitamin and minerals in them. In fact, molasses is exceptional. I would say after the stevia products, I'd say molasses is the next one because it is so full of vitamins and minerals and iron. It's so good for you. We actually recommend people, if they're low in iron, to start taking a teaspoon of molasses or a tablespoon of molasses every day. My kids used to drink it as chocolate milk in the wintertime. We called it caramel milk. If you put a tablespoon of molasses into some almond milk or whatever, and it heated almond milk, it tastes like caramel milk. It was a wonderful treat. They loved it. They would drink it as children. It contains sugars that might be, and in there also there's sugars, because they're complex sugars, they're tolerated better by your body. They're not, like you know how if you drink wine, it goes instantly to your head? Well, white sugar is so processed, it's the same way. Whereas these are complex sugars, so they are tolerated better. They affect your blood sugar in a much slower way. So they're not going to be, they're not going to affect this, they're not going to cause this high and low kind of thing. Also, they are strong flavored though, so you would want to use them, and also because they're liquid, you have to use them in a more controlled way as far as your recipes. You can use them in any recipe that has liquid, of course, that a liquid wouldn't matter. But otherwise, as far as baking, you have to use recipes specific to them or just use them in limited amounts. So as far as your liquid dry effect wouldn't be as much, you know, so just pay attention to that. Again, you could probably start almost anything at 1/4 and work into it to see how your recipes would work. Cakes and things would be easier tolerated than a cookie would, for example. It might spread too much in a cookie. So, but it still is an excellent alternative, especially if you have pure maple syrup. It's a good product as well. And honey is definitely, for local honey, is a very good product for people who tend to have more allergies, to use a little bit of local honey.
Other ones are the sucanat, the date sugar, coconut sugar. These also contain vitamins and minerals. They are a complex sugar, so they're going to be tolerated better than your white sugar. It's usable in most recipes as a 1-to-1 substitution. So again, if you have a recipe that calls for 1 cup of, you know, white sugar, you can use up to a cup of these sugars. Again, you probably have to test some recipes to see how you like the flavor, but it's saying that you can safely do that 1-to-1. And it's best if it's ground up or processed before using.
This is what date sugar looks like. It's just actually ground dates, if you can see this. Sucanat looks similar to that, but a little bit more capsulated. You know, date sugar
use
doesn't
it 1-to-1?
Sucanat and Sucanat is used. They say it's actually 1 1/4 Sucanat to 1 cup of sugar, but I only use 1-to-1 in all recipes, and it doesn't make any difference. But if you're, like she said, if you're using Sucanat in something that's like many recipes, it doesn't make any difference. But if you're using it in like a fancy cake or something, you might want to grind it up in your coffee grinder first or in a food processor, because it may not dissolve as cleanly in your butter. It may not blend as cleanly in your butter. So you might want to soften, you know, or blend it in a food processor first if you're going to do that. But it's still, you'd never know. In fact, many people feel you have a better taste because Sucanat still maintains some of the nutrients, some of the molasses, as it were, in white sugar is in Sucanat. That's why it's dark. Sucanat is dark, like coconut sugar. It's dark like that. So because it's still maintaining some of the molasses in it. Okay. So.
And some of these alternative sugars, too, come in a confectioner's form as well as a granulated, too. So if it's something that you're making a cream cheese icing, I know some of them, like the Swerve and even the Gentle Sweet, are more of a powder form, so they blend better than what some of the other granulated ones were. So
Definitely.
there's a sugar for what you need it for.
Absolutely.
You just have to find it.
Yes. The biggest, we didn't add this onto here, but that made me think about it. When you said there's a sugar for what you made it for, is The only thing that I've found where some of these alternative sugars don't work is kombucha. That's the only thing. You have to be
Oh,
careful when you make kombucha because you cannot use stevia for kombucha. The book says you actually could use molasses or maple syrup or honey for kombucha, but it would definitely have a kind of a funky flavor. But what you can use for kombucha is the sucanat. So that's what I use when I make my kombucha, because kombucha actually eats the sugar. And so you have to have a real sugar product, but the kombucha tastes great when you use sucanat in it as opposed to other things. Okay, let's see. We've already dealt with that one.
So now here are some tips how you can cut down on sugar. So again, I don't know about you, but whenever I was trying to cut back, I tried to go cold turkey and it didn't work out very well. The best thing to do is to try to cut back. So reduce your sugar by 25% at first. Again,
She means in a recipe.
Yeah.
Like say your recipe called for 2 cups of sugar. You could probably put in 1.5 cups and have very little difference in your recipe.
Yeah, because you want to do that, and we've given you some nice alternatives to do that. So start gradually. Also, an additional baking soda, baking powder to increase the chewiness.
Because when you take the sugar out, it affects the moisture. So if you add just a little bit more baking powder or baking soda, if you were making a cookie or something and you took out some of it, if you wanted it to, what it'll actually do is it makes it puff up a little bit, and then it flattens back down after it comes out, and that's what makes it a little bit more chewy. So that's what you're trying to affect. So.
Or an additional egg, or slightly reduce the flour. It reduces the dryness of it. And again, this would probably even make a little more sense when we talk about flours and such. You have to watch in replacing those and how you do it because it can affect the dryness of your cookie or cake or anything like that. You can compensate with extracts for needed flavor. So almond, vanilla, they make them in so many different ones, chocolate, peppermint, anything like that. So you can add some of those at very little amounts to increase the flavor.
We don't realize that sweetness is one thing. We think sweet, but sugar actually enhances the flavor of things. So like say your recipe called for 1 teaspoon of vanilla. If you reduce the sugar, you may want to add a 2nd teaspoon of vanilla because it without the sugar to help it, sometimes the vanilla flavor is lost because sugar actually enhances that. So add a little additional extracts or flavors to it.
And then you want to expect that things are going to taste different. When you use an alternative sugar, it's going to taste a little bit different, which is again why we're saying add it in slowly to make that change. And as you change these things in your diet and other things that you change in your diet, you'll develop more of a taste for them. And when you try regular cane sugar, it'll actually be way sweeter and not taste nearly as good as what you've become accustomed to. And then also, again, swap out the soda. So if you're a big soda drinker, that's probably where I would even suggest starting. There is a great product called Zevia, which is if you have to have your soda. It is a stevia sweetened soda. And they come in different flavors. So if you are a Dr. Pepper drinker, you can drink Dr. Zevia. They have Zevia Cola, ginger ale. And their ginger ale and root beer are actually flavored with real ginger. So it gives it that flavor that you're looking for or that carbonation. But there's also carbonated healthy waters. Linda has found...
But I wanted you to, as you were talking about the carbonated waters, I want you to be aware that many of them are full of sugar. Mm-hmm. This is antioxidant water. This is, one of the antioxidant waters has 8 teaspoons of added sugar, or 32 added grams of sugar, or 125 calories just from the added sugar to it. This is vitamin water. It has 8 teaspoons of added sugar.
And that's why those drops you were talking about are so much better.
Yes.
The stevia drops, if you have to have flavor. But obviously, water is your best bet. And you can actually put, a drop of, I like to put a drop of lemon, Young Living essential oil in mine.
Really good.
Even taking it out when you go to a restaurant, when we're allowed to do that again, Instead of using their lemons, take your lemon oil and put a drop in there. That's so good for adrenals and other things. Obviously, again, water's best, but if you like to have a little bit of flavor of something, there are some great alternatives out there.
And I would definitely add on to her the lemon water thing. Lemon oil is the strongest oil for adrenals. So in this high stress time, we need to not leave the house without it, having our lemon oil with us all times.
So, well, I think that's it as far as our sugar talk. Hopefully you've gained a greater understanding of the alternative sugars and just how bad regular sugar can be for your bodies.
But now you have some wonderful alternatives of things to use. If you have any other questions, Liz will post this on our site, on the WellHeart Chiropractic site. So if you have any questions you want to post, I'm sure that we can answer those as well.
And what do you know what our next
I
topic
think
is
the
gonna be?
next topic is alternative grains and how to change your diet and incorporate alternative grains, because the average American eats only one grain, and it's white flour. White wheat is all they're eating, is wheat, and the white wheat, not even a whole grain wheat, in almost every single product they're using. And so we're going to show you some alternatives, the why you want to go into whole grains, and then some wonderful alternatives that you can get started on in changing your diet. So that'll be our next topic. And then the future topic, one of the future topics after that, is our bean class.
Yes, I'm excited about that.
So, okay. Thank you very much for spending the time with us.